From Flourish DX, this is the Psych, Health and Safety Canada podcast, with workplace mental health becoming a priority for businesses who want to retain staff and prevent burnout. This is the source of information for creating sustainable and psychologically healthy workplaces in Canada.
Welcome to Psych, Health and Safety in Canada. And today my guest has agreed to speak to me, not knowing me at all. And we get to be introduced to each other in this recording. So hang on, it should be a really great time. Her name is Céline Carment, and she does coaching specifically for women professionals who are burning out or burned out. And as somebody who's been in that place, I'm really interested to hear from you, Carmen. How did you come to where you are today? How did you get here?
Okay, so as you mentioned, I burned out. It was like 4 years ago. I work in a corporate world in a field I was passionate about. And I thought I was in a good health because I had a healthy and nutritious food. I exercise. I think everything seems to be on track. But I felt like more and more unfulfilled in my and discontent in my position, in my job. So I started to have some health issue, like about my digestion, hypothyroidism, lack of energy. And I didn't know, but it was the first sign of burnout. And one day, it was in December 2017, everything fell apart. I just ended up a call for a meeting, and I was literally crying. My body was shaking, and I just left home. I left work and go back home. And here I started a new journey. And so I think few months after, when I started to recover, I just realized that health is not just nutrition and physical activity. It's also like everything you have around in your life. So your professional life, your social life, your home environment, your relationship with your partner, with your friends. There is also your spirituality, for example. There is so many things. And then as long as I healed, I was like, I should help people to be more healthy and to understand like work is a part of health. So that's my story.
And what were you like at work before you burned out?
I think it was the value it brings to my life. I was in the field of renewable energy, and I really liked the fact that I contribute to make the world a better place.
So you were passionate about what you were doing.
Oh yeah, I was passionate.
Yeah.
I woke up every morning, especially at the beginning of my career. It was a hobby. I couldn't stop walking. It was like, yeah.
So there's a phrase that I use to describe people that are more likely to burn out, which is high achievers with poor personal boundaries. And when I hear I couldn't work enough, that, you were just so passionate, you kept doing it, that is a red flag for someone. Was there anybody in your work or your life that said, Céline, you're burning the candle at both ends. You need to slow down. You need balance?
No, nobody told me at this time.
No, because at work we get rewarded for being that passionate. I always tell the story that when I was approaching burnout, I said, I can't work, 60, 70, 80 hours a week anymore. And I had a boss who said, well, I never asked you to, but why would I stop you? And at the time I thought, oh, that was just me. I was just being foolish. I should have known better. But as the years went by, I started to realize that's not true. As a boss, you ought to be aware of those people who do not have the great boundaries, who are putting too much in, and really burning themselves out, because once they're burned out, you're not going to get that kind of response. Why do you think burnout is so prevalent today?
I think there is so many factors. I think I could spend about it like 4 hours. But as you mentioned, I think it's there. I think there is 2 aspects. There is something from the individual, like people have value, and especially value in their job, and they also have their own way of working. That can be. I just noticed like a lot of people who burn out are really perfectionists. And there is also the company. So there is, for me, it's a kind of, I know it's hard to hear and it's hard to say, but it's kind of 50% responsibility. Because there is also the company, and the company is your environment, is the value, the way it works, also the relation you have with your coworker, the relation you have with your manager, with your client, and everything. And I used to compare this to a plant. If you take a cactus and you bring this cactus to Arctic, it's not going to survive too long, because the needs of the cactus are not met in this environment. And that's the same for the individual. If you have some needs and the company cannot fill your needs, you cannot survive. You can adapt. You can be like a cactus. You can put the cactus in a pot and it's gonna survive inside in the Arctic, right? But if it's not in the desert with a lot of sunlight, it's not gonna work, right? And I think that's exactly the same thing. It's just you have to adapt to the company, or to find a company who work and who is in alignment with your value and the way you work.
So whose responsibility is it? Is it the employee's responsibility to choose a good fit for their employer? Is it the employer's responsibility to create a good fit for their employee?
I think it should be a dialogue between the employees and the employers.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say to the managers who say, look, this is the way we do it, take it or leave it?
I think that they should understand that we are human. We are not a number, and there is a value of everyone. Employers should enhance the strengths of people instead of pointing out their weakness. But I mean, if I go to an interview and an employer say to me, maybe I wasn't like this before, but now if I'm in the front of someone who say, take it or leave it, I will say, okay, you're not going to be a good fit, so I'm going to leave it.
Yes. But I like what you said, though. I wouldn't have said it before. And I'm the same. Before I burned out, I would just, oh, thank you for the opportunity, and then do the best I could. Now I just say, yeah, no, not interested. But somebody said to me, what does it take to, make those changes so that you don't burn out? I said, well, there's 2 things that work almost immediately. One is burning out, and the other is having a life-threatening illness. Those things work really well to change your mind. But I hope that with the work that you're doing and the work that others are doing, that people don't need those really horrible things to happen for them to start to realize that burnout is difficult. Can you describe for me, from your experience, Céline, what's the difference between being tired and overwhelmed and being burned out?
I think it's the difference is very thin, because when you are stressed and overwhelmed, you can lead to burnout. But for me, I know we use the word burnout even for people who are overwhelmed and stressed. But for me, burnout is the turning point. It's at some point you cannot handle everything you have on your plate anymore. Mm-hmm. It's the time, for me, it's the time you cannot function properly. You cannot focus. Sometimes you feel, if I take my example, I remember when I burned out, I felt like it was a dead soul in a live body.
Yeah, that's a very relatable description to me. A dead soul, and like that you're just going through the motions, you're just floating there, you're not enjoying life, you're not embracing life, you don't have the motivation for work, you're just there. And it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. So tell me a little bit about what you do now to help individuals address or prevent burnout.
So I help them to set up new habits in their life, especially around nutrition, around physical activity, but also realize what doesn't work in their life and put boundaries in that. So, but I think when you started to burn out, one of the first symptoms is you have a lack of energy and motivation. And I think if you want to take your life in your hand and step into a new life, you have to regain this energy first. And for me, that's the first step. And how you can regain this energy, there is a lot of things to do. But it's taking time for yourself and taking time for self-care. And also set your boundaries. But as a health coach, my role is to meet people where they are right now. And I'm not here to tell them, oh, you have to meditate, you have to take a break, you have to breathe, you have to do that. I'm not here to give a prescription to them. I'm here to listen to them and to meet them where they are and to ask high mileage questions to help them to find their own solution. Because the change can operate when people find their own solution because they're committed with what they say.
Right. And I was one of those people who just said, you don't understand. I don't have time. I've got all these things. I've got all these responsibilities. I can't do it. And I would have been resistive to your advice to do self-care. So what would you have done with me?
I would have asked you, okay, what do you, I understand you're busy because I was there and I was overwhelmed too, but what do you think you should do to be less busy, for example? What can change this right now?
Mm-hmm. And make people like me stop and be objective rather than emotional about what's going on, to really consider it. And I needed, and especially having somebody who's been there, Céline, would have made a difference, because I think in the moment that I was burning out, I felt like I was the only one, and to realize now how common it is, it's unbelievable. And it's a shame that it's so common. Why, and I think you've told me some of this about why coaching is an approach to well-being, whereas lectures and reading books and seeing videos is much less effective.
I think a coach holds a safe space for people to speak their truth, to meet where they are right now. In front of them, they have someone who listens to them deeply, who ask high mileage questions, who let them take the lead and find their own solution. It's also a place of non-judgment, of compassion. And I would say a coach also gives accountability and support.
Mm-hmm. Well, and accountability is an important thing too, right?
Yeah.
To say you need to do it. If you were able to go back to your employer today and say, this is what you should have done for me when I was in that place, what would your advice be?
I think I would ask for more listening. Yeah. Listen more to people instead of saying, oh, you know what, if you're not happy with your job, you can leave. There is 80 or 100 people that are waiting to take your position. I think it's not a way to treat people, because everyone brings a value in the company, and it just push you down when you hear that, especially when you come to your manager, your employers, and you come with a constructive discussion and say, hey, you know, I don't feel good in my position right now because, I don't know, I have too much things to do, and I just feel like it's not going to be as good as I would like to deliver. It would be great to have someone in the phone and say, okay, I understand. Let's try to find a solution together to just make the things easier for you and work more in the team, or how can I help you? Or, you know, just be supportive, listen and be supportive.
Mm-hmm. It's not a difficult thing. And, you know, back in 2017, there were 80 or 100 people waiting for jobs. Today, there's not in many cases. And so this advice that you have is not just about being compassionate or being caring. It's also going to be imperative to business if you want to attract and retain talent, because it's very expensive to recruit, hire, and train people. Yeah. Exactly. And if you've got someone already there.
And I would say, what makes the value of the company? If it's people, right? If you don't have people in your company, who is going to do the job?
Mm-hmm.
No one. So you have to value people for what they do for the company, because most of the people, they are passionate about what they do. I mean, for my field, it was the case. Like, everyone was passionate about this field. Everyone wanted to make a world a better world, was convinced about the field. And I saw so many people who burned out or were about to burn out because they didn't have this listening, this recognition, also a lack of alignment with their values. And it's such I don't find the word in English. Sorry.
Try it in French.
Gaspillage, a kind of a waste, you know, when you have something and instead of valuing it, you just wasted.
Yeah. You know, you bring up another great point, which is that often when you're in, we often say the caring professions, but, you know, when you're looking at teachers, when you're looking at nurses, when you're looking at police, when you're looking at paramedics, and of course, people who are dealing with climate change, these are things we're passionate about. And so we really want to make a difference. And yet burnout rates in all of those fields are higher than average because we're passionate. And so I think the greatest leaders tap into that, and they will help people to stay passionate and to stay energized for longer periods of time, rather than just letting them go till they burn out and replacing them.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. And because that's a big leap for you to go from doing things around the environment to coaching people on burnout. How did you have the courage to make that shift?
I think when I burned out, I consulted a therapist, and she told me one thing, and I think I still have this sentence in my head. She said, do you realize that you risk your life? And it was a shock for me to hear this sentence. And I think at this moment, I was like, if I risk my life to do something I thought it was safe for me, what could be risky? You know, I can
Yeah, if I almost ended up disabled, unwell, ruining my life, then these small risks, what's the big deal? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I think right now I'm like, I practice what I used to call the uh, oh, the dead bed philosophy. It's
The
when you
dead.
when you wake up, you're like, if today it's my last day, what can I do today? So
Yeah.
I'm like, when I analyze my life and my professional life, I realized the red thread was I always wanted to help people. I wanted to help my coworker to be better at the job. I wanted to help also my friends to overcome some hurdle they have in their life. And it was in every field of my life, I wanted to help people. And even if I didn't have any rewards, like for example, helping a coworker in another department, what is going to bring to my professional life? Nothing. But it's just because I like to see people like glowing and be like, oh, thank you, Céline. It's so great. Now I feel better. So I was like, I should take this experience of burning out and also all those things I love because I'm passionate about nutrition and cooking. I always say I could spend my whole life in the kitchen. So, and also self-development, because I spend a lot of time reflecting on myself and work on my self-development with book, podcast, and everything. And I was like, I can take all of these things, bring them all together and change people's life and do what I love to do, right?
Yeah, it's perfect. We call that post-traumatic growth. So you went through something traumatic, burnout is traumatic, and now you've turned it around into growth and development for yourself and for others. And it's something we don't talk about as much as we talk about post-traumatic stress, but it's more prevalent and you're an example of it, right? Just saying, I'm not going to be held back. So then there was something else that you said that has stuck with me, and that is when you're at work and you're compromising your values, compromising your integrity, and we call that moral injury. And we know that it's very challenging and very harmful. So can you speak a little bit more about how people might compromise their values or integrity at work and what they can do after the fact?
Yeah, it's a hard thing. I think when you are in this position to compromise, you are just like, I don't want to do it, but because it's my job, I have to do it. So you go against your value. And I think it brings a lot of anxiety and guilt to be in this position. And sometimes you don't say to your manager, but sometimes you can, for example, if your manager say you have to say this to your client and don't say the truth, for example. I know it's happened to me. Sometimes I say to the client that I had a really good bonding, I say, I shouldn't say that, so don't say to anyone that I say it to you, but I will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And I say the truth sometimes, I just like, it wasn't as rough as the truth, but I just say a part of the truth because it makes me feel like in alignment with my value, because I cannot lie. I just can be honest. And at the same time, it brings the truth to the client. So it's like, oh, she told me the truth, so I should trust her.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps to build this bonding with the clients, right?
Yeah. So you refuse to compromise the truth. But what do you do with clients who they've done something that they're ashamed of, they've done something that they're not proud of? How do you help them to move forward from that?
I think sometimes you don't have to be what has been done in the past has been done, and it has been done for one reason. So feel guilty won't help, right? So I think you should take this experience as a lesson, and to see what worked and what doesn't work, and what is the lesson for the next time it will happen.
Yes. And, I think my sister-in-law, who's a grief counselor, she once said to me that guilt is just an excuse not to act. If you did something that you're not proud of, then you either fix it. If you can't fix it, then you can pay it forward by doing something else that counteracts it or makes it better for the world, if not for that person. And then you move forward. And I remember when she first said guilt's an excuse, and I'm like, what? No, it's like a horrible feeling. And she said, it's do something about it and move on. Don't stay there. There's no value, just as you said. So it's interesting. What else would you suggest to somebody who right now is either approaching or in burnout, in terms of what they could do for themselves in this moment?
Take time for themselves, and maybe take time away from work, even if it's hard at some point. You need to fill your cup before filling the cup of someone else. And it's also what we used to say, if you are in an airplane and it's about to crash, first you put your mask on your face before helping others. And that's what you have to do at some point. You have to take a step back and just take time for yourself, disconnect. Mm-hmm. And disconnect from work, from everything, just reconnect with yourself.
Yes, because you can't be objective unless you have sort of settled down your central nervous system enough, because you described shaking and crying and having to go home. But what that is our nervous system is so frayed from, all of that nonstop activity, thinking, stimulation, that we're unable to function the way we do. And it's only stopping that for a while that allows us to think it through. That this podcast is about psych health and safety. And you and I both know that burnout is definitely connected to psych health and safety. But can you say how you see it connected? Burnout, the prevention of burnout, and overall a psychologically healthy and safe workplace.
Yeah. I think burnout affects our body in different level. It's behavioral, in cognitive, the psychological side and the physical side. So, and the psychological level of burnout can lead to self-devaluation, lack of sense, lack of motivation. And in an extreme case, it can lead to depression, right? So I think here's the link. How can you have an employee who is in a good health if he's not in a good psychological state, if he's in a brain fog, if he has lack of focus, fatigue, irritability, all these things who doesn't make him as efficient as he could be in a safe environment.
Yeah, that was one of the ironies that I found, is that I felt like I was working harder than ever. I was definitely working more hours than ever, but the quality of my work and my productivity, my performance was not as good. And what I've seen for me, Céline, is since I've burned out and I refuse to go back there, the quality of my work is significantly better. So it's ironic that at a time when I felt like I was giving all I had to give, it wasn't as good as what I can give when I have balance in my life. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Now, you talked about body, mind, and spirit, and I have the privilege of doing work with folks from the Indigenous community, and they talk about the medicine wheel, and they talk about all of that balance, and it really seems to connect to that. But what would you say to people who say, well, your personal well-being is your responsibility, it's not a workplace issue? Especially, I would say, with body and spirituality. Whereas I think we can make the argument more easily that their minds and their well-being are definitely work assets.
Yeah. But as we said before, there is a link, like the more you work, the less efficient you are. So that's why it's the workplace responsibility to make space for people to rest when they need. I think a lot of people think they are efficient when they stay in the front of the computer from 8 to 5, and they do their lunch break in the front of the computer, and they don't go out, and they do nothing. When they take a break, they go on internet. It's not a break. And that's the employer's responsibility to raise awareness in their team and to say, hey, I think it's not healthy. I will encourage you, like, for example, having a nice kitchen, and encourage people to have a lunch break together. And for example, phone free, that would be great too. Or to just take a walk outside, or there is a lot of things an employer can encourage within the team.
Yeah, that would.
If it's help people to be more efficient, that's a win for the employers, right? So why not?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Everybody wins. And there's a question that I want to ask you, which is for people who don't know what a psychologically healthy and safe workplace is. How would you describe it in very plain terms to help somebody know what it would feel like, what it would look like if you were in a psychologically healthy and safe workplace?
I would say it's a place when all the team members are open to listen and to support other team members in their daily task and in their challenge. A place where the employers trust the employees instead of infantilizing them for their time management, for their responsibility. Also a place where the manager value and help to enhance employee strengths instead of pointing out where they are weak or pointing out their weaknesses. And also put people in their zone of genius instead of putting them in the field they don't really like, or they don't really feel the value or the motivation. And hold a space for them to be listened.
Yeah, those are all great, but I want you to explain more what the zone of genius is. Some of us aren't geniuses, so what are you putting me in that zone for?
I'm gonna try to find an example. Like for me, I know I can be good, and I like to speak with different kind of people and to exchange. Sometimes I can speak to a lawyer, and the day after speak to a farmer, and the day after speak to a mayor. And that's the things I love about my job. It was the public relation. But if you put me in the front of the computer playing with numbers, I won't like it. So I think my zone of genius is more like public relation than playing with number. Even if as a project manager, I have to play with number, and I have to make sure that the project was bankable, but it's not what I like the most. So if I can have help on this side and have more energy to focus on what I like and what I'm good at, I think it would help the productivity of the company too, right?
Yes. Yes. So I think your zone of genius makes a lot of sense to me. We ask questions. What of the work gives you energy? What do you feel that you're really strong at? What's the part of the work that you enjoy? And then the idea, as you say, is not, okay, you only have to do that. You have to do the other work too, but let's try and give you more of what gives you that energy rather than more of the things that you don't like. And that's something that I did years ago. I had a small business and we did profiling, personality typing of all of the people. And what we did is we reorganized the work so that everybody could do more of what was what you call their zone of genius, more of what they enjoyed and were good at, and less of the things that they didn't. And everybody benefited. Everybody liked it. And the productivity of the entire office went up because everybody was doing more. It's a simple thing that can make a big difference.
Yeah, totally. And I think you pointed out the important point. It's energy. When you do something you like, you have a lot of energy. And I know that it happens to me for coaching. Like one day I have to coach one of my clients and I was a little bit like tired and I was like, okay, I have to be in a good mood because I cannot face my client being like, oh, I don't want to coach today. So I just, every time when I have a coaching, I meditate a little bit before and I set an intention and I jump into this coaching one, like I have to be full of energy and positive and everything. And at the end of the coaching, my energy just shift. Like I was like so energetic. I was like, wow, that was great. I love it. It just lighted my fire,
It's such a great point because what you're talking about is choosing your mood. So acknowledging I'm tired, I have low energy right now, but also acknowledging that you have a choice, that you have a choice to, and, some people will say fake it till you make it, but I think it's practice it until it becomes the reality is more what it is. And you were able to turn your own mood around. And today I wrote about that. I say we invest, in buying new clothing, or we invest in getting our hair done. And yet so few people invest in being able to manage their mood, to manage their emotions, to manage their thoughts. And yet you're an example of the value that is inherent in us being able to choose how we're going to respond to life rather than just letting life happen to us and feeling that we just have to ride the waves of whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. We have the power to change our mood every day and to jump into life in a good mood. And there is a lot of things we can do, like, and I used to say the way you will approach your day, it depends on how you approach your morning. So most of the people, and they wake up, they take off coffee, they drink their coffee on the way to work, and they probably eat something or just stop to Tim Hortons and eat something in their car, and they arrive at work and they are not fully awake and they just try to sip all this coffee, like hoping that the coffee will give them energy, but it doesn't work like this. If you wake up, like, even if it's 15 minutes before the time you used to hit the road, just 15 minutes, and take the time for you, just breathe, meditate, maybe journal, maybe do some movements, take the time to take your breakfast at home. And then when you arrive at work, you're not like in this bad mood where you're on the top, you listen to the news in the car, just full of negativity. So
Yeah.
if you just take this moment for positivity and to focus on yourself in the morning, when you arrive at work, you're like, hello, everybody, super happy. But when you arrive with your coffee and you hear like there is the war in Ukraine and the COVID stuff, and you're like sipping your coffee in this state of, okay, I have to go to work, and you cannot show up like in a good shape with the high energy at work, right?
Mm-hmm. But I heard that advice probably 20 years ago, around the time that I was burning out. And I just was like, no, I want that 15 minutes of sleep. I don't want to get up and do all that stuff. I'm just going to, get out the door. And then after I burned out, I decided maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did, and I should try some of these things. And now my mornings are completely different. I'll do some yoga. I might do some guided meditation. I will think about what I'm grateful for. And the difference of taking what really amounts to about 15 to 20 minutes is so significant. But honestly, Céline, I wouldn't have believed you if you told me 20 years ago. I just wouldn't have believed you. So, yeah.
I think I was in the same position. I probably wouldn't have believed, but I would say to people, just give it a try. Like, see how much time people spend on distraction. It could be like television, social media, like the things that don't nourish them at the end of the day. If you spend like 1 hour on social media, what do you have for you? What did you learn? Nothing.
Well, and that's it. It's addictive, and you just scroll. But there's so many things that we could do to improve the quality of our life instead.
And I would say, if you cut your social media, start by cutting like just 5 or 10 minutes a day, and go to bed like 5 or 10 minutes earlier, and you can wake up 5 or 10 minutes earlier too. You don't have to change drastically, but just make a little change. Like, it's always like baby step. You cannot change all your lifestyle or all your diet from one day to another. It's just little step, little by little, like hiking a mountain. It's just one step after another, right?
Yeah, we call them micro changes, so that they're so tiny that it's almost like, well, I can do that. Like, eat one more serving of vegetables, never mind give up chocolate and wine or whatever it is, just one more serving of vegetables a day. But in terms of this, I was asked to do 2 minutes of yoga in the morning, 2 minutes. And I was like, well, I can do 2 minutes. But then as you do it consistently, you start to see the difference. Then you think, I'm going to add something to that. I'm going to make it a little longer. But if you had said to me, I want you to do 15 minutes of yoga in the morning, I'd say, I can't. I got too much to do. So these micro changes really are helpful, because it's hard to say no to something so silly, so small, so easy.
Yeah, totally.
Céline, your story is amazing. How you took what was a very difficult and really, I don't know that I'd say life-threatening, but it was threatening to your well-being, and turned it around to help others. And I think that's amazing. And I think that is a great way to transform something difficult into something beautiful.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you.
Yeah. Any last bits of advice that you want to give to our listeners about dealing with their own well-being?
That's something I'm going to preach, but something, because it was of my block in the past, I would say, do not hesitate to ask for help. Because when we are in this situation, we feel guilt. We feel that we can overcome by ourselves, because most of the people in this situation, they are they do. They used to be self-driven, but sometimes you need to ask for help. And when you ask for help, you can have people who can relate and who went through this experience, and you can have the tools and just move forward faster and be supported, because I think it's really important to be supported in this situation. And a lot of people feel very alone and not understood. And you can have someone who can understand you.
Well, and that's the thing. Somebody once said to me, how do you feel when people come to you for help? And I said, well, I feel honored that they trust me, and I feel valued, like that I have some purpose. And they said, well, why would you deny people in your life the opportunity to feel trusted and valued? And it was like, oh, I don't know. I didn't mean to do that. And so I reach out for help now a lot more than I ever did. Not because I think that I need help all the time, but because I want people in my life to feel trusted and valued.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's true.
Now, Céline, if people wanted to get in touch with you, if they really wanted to get some help from you, how would they reach you?
For now, I'm just starting my business as a health coach. So I have a LinkedIn page, and I also have an Instagram, so they can reach me through that. And I'm currently working on the website and everything, but I just, as I say, baby step, I start small. So
yeah, that's it. Start small and strong, and then build it out. That's the way to do it. So Céline Carment is Celine and Carment. So you can find her on LinkedIn. Céline, thank you so much for taking this time with me today, and all the best to you as your journey continues.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to speak about it.
Great. And for all the people who are listening, subscribe to Psych Health and Safety in Canada podcast so that you can hear all of the upcoming guests who are helping us to learn more about psych health and safety and about life in general. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Psych Health and Safety Canada podcast. To stay up to date with the best content on workplace mental health in North America, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and join the Flourish DX community at www.flourishdx.com.